Every day we rise is a great day. I'm sorry, Leah, your recording sign came up and blocked me. Okay, every day we rise is a great day to be alive. And welcome to the Seven Cities Forums of Hampton Roads presents Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And I'm here with our host, Leah Drake Stitt, Thomas the Colonel Chapman, and yours truly, James Slim Overton. Good morning, host.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good
We're here.
MLK Day morning.
Yes, it's a holiday, but we are always here. But what a great day to celebrate the birth of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. But saying
And
that,
I guess you can see it's just us. So we're going to be here and we're going to discuss some of our experiences. I guess one of the first things we'll start out with, where were you when you got the news, if you can remember, of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King?
But let me put the disclosure out first.
Sure.
And so the views expressed on this show are those of the guests and the moderators, and not of the radio station. So we just put that disclosure out there first before we even start. So to answer that, do you want to do first? I tell you what, when Martin Luther King, I remember that day when he was assassinated. We were going to, my brothers and I were going to Academy Park Elementary. And we walked from Academy Park down Greenwood Drive to Bonneville Apartments where we lived. Mm-hmm. And I remember this day to this day that a guy in some old car tried to run us over. They let us out early because the teachers knew that there was going to be a problem. They thought there was going to be a lot of riots, and they let us out. And we had to run and hide in the woods behind the trees so the car couldn't run us over. So that was our first brush of almost being killed because of some racial segregation down in because at the time the elementary schools has just been desegregated at the time. And when they took license to us to say, hey, we didn't have our lives weren't worth nothing, even as little children. And so that's where we were at on the day of assassination.
Wow. Yeah, I can recall it was 1968, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was at Waters. I was going to W.E. Waters junior high at the time. It's middle school now. And it was that evening when it happened, right? When we got the news, because I remember being home and this flash came on the TV and I heard my mother, say, "Oh no." And it didn't really hit me until, she was upset. My dad wasn't there. And when he came home, they were all on the phone and everything, but it was a big thing on the news. I can remember this one reporter being up there, and it was like he was giving the news about the assassination. It's like he was almost crying. And the next day at school at Waters, he said he was faking it. He was just trying to be, and they were talking about some of the other reporters who were just giving the news were real about it. But this guy was up there crying, But anyway, that's my memory of it, and it happening. And then a lot of things happening in the city. I think some of the fears that you talked about, Colonel, actually happened. I believe some youngsters went out and targeted some white kids, and one bad thing about it, I don't think they really understood the significance of what had just happened. Right. They were just angry, and it was like riots all over the country behind that. And some people were opportunists and some people were really upset.
Yes.
Well, I was in Harlem, New York when Martin Luther King was assassinated. I
Oh,
was with
wow.
my cousin Leona, and we were going, I'm trying to think if we were trying to go to a movie or something in Harlem. I'm not really sure, but it really, being in Harlem at that time, it made me realize that certain places where African Americans lived, they could be blocked off completely. And because they shut Harlem down that
Mm.
night. Um, and it was just such a, mm, such a, I just can't even begin to explain that moment, because of the emotions that ran through me as I thought about all that this man had given and how at such a young age he was taken away from us. So I was in Harlem, New York on that day.
Mhm.
Yeah, you were in one of those cities where they really had issues. I don't know if they did anything to shut down anywhere here locally. I know that I remember hearing somebody say that the police department, they were riding four deep. That means it was two people in the front of the car and two people in the back. And they were mostly in our neighborhoods, making
Hmm.
sure that you know we were kept cool. But the
Yeah,
amazing thing,
yeah.
and we talked about this for years, the emotions were high,
Hmm.
and it's been like that. But we talked about opportunities, how we would get upset and go out and burn down our own neighborhoods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
yeah.
never made sense to me.
Mhm.
And even today, sometimes we'll do that. But today is evidence that people will step in and try to instigate that, people
Oh yeah,
outside
oh
of
yeah,
them.
oh yeah.
But back in the day, in the 60s, late 60s and 70s, when we had an issue, we burned down our own neighborhood.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's something that I never understood either. But the only, one of the things with that, as we burned down our own neighborhood, federal dollars came in to rebuild, but it was never rebuilt the same way. It was always replaced by liquor stores and little jip joints to sell us food, old high price food and stuff like that. And so we never recovered from that. But Leah talked about, I think she says, his sacrifice and how he was taken from us. I look back at it in retrospect now that I'm in my mid 60s now, and I think he knew that this day was going to come. He had a premonition.
Oh, he did indeed.
Yes, because he's given his last speech, and I've been to the mountaintop. And if you
Hmm.
ever have a chance to read or listen to that on YouTube and look at the words, I've been to the mountaintop
Yeah,
and I've
yeah.
looked over, you
Uh-huh.
know. And so that was one of the last speech that he gave, and and sort of foretold what was going to happen. And in that, for his sacrifice, he solidified uh, what was going to be the civil rights actions of for his time. He solidified his legacy, but it allowed President Johnson to get the civil rights bill out the next year, to pass the voting rights bill, and to do all the bills that he did before, because they were all caught up in the Senate.
Hmm.
And without that sacrifice, they would have had, it would have been, probably never would have even been thought of, or gotten through 50 years later. And,
But don't you think it's amazing that here it is over 50 years later, and we're still fighting those same battles with the
yes,
with the, with the Congress, with the Senate, it's just unbelievable that we cannot even get the voting rights bill out of the Senate. And you have 16 senators who voted for it in the past, 16 Republican senators who voted for the voting rights bill in the past, and they refused to vote for it at this time because they're running lock, stock, and barrel with that man who was put out of the White House last year. So it's 50 years later. And when does the fighting end? When do we get to a place where we can truly work together and realize that all citizens, and the sad thing about it is not only going to impact upon the African American community, it's going to impact upon so many others. This voting right laws that they're passing in these states that are just so crucial. People got to stand in line for hours and hours and hours to vote. Nobody can bring them food. Nobody can give them water. Just draconian kind of laws that they're passing 50 years after the sacrifice that Martin Luther King paid for each and every one of us.
And it's all based on race, and we have to call it like it is. And there's an old statement, I think Martin Luther King says, and you're talking about how it affects just not us or people of color, because he says that I can't be who I want to be until you can be who you want to be. And until we float all boats, America will never achieve what we call the perfect union.
Right.
And working together. And we have gone past, we are really way past the part of working together. The Republican Party have been corrupted by that man down in Florida, and they've turned into a party of old, and my opinion, white racists.
And
they
primarily,
don't care about America anymore.
And primarily men.
And men, yes.
Primarily men.
Yes,
Well,
that's the GOP.
Yes.
One thing about that, you see the men controlling the policy, but when it comes, if you bring up the women, they go in there voting for them. So
that's true. You're right about that.
Put them on notice as well. But it's funny how when Dr. King had all his critics back then about nonviolence and being too passive and things like that, but he was getting into the White House and talking to President Johnson and making him realize what had to be done or what they would and would not accept. If we go to the White House now, it's a photo op, and that's all it is. It's nothing of substance coming out of there that I can see, especially with the last president. I mean, he would parade all the people in there, take a picture with them, and that's the last time he probably would talk to them. But even back in Martin Luther King's days, you had Black Republicans like Edward Brooke. He was a Black Republican, but he was instrumental in making sure some of those things, some of those policies were changed for Black Americans.
Yeah.
So you had that kind of thing, but then you get people like the senator out of South Carolina,
Senator Scott.
Uncle Scott. You can't figure him, you can't understand where he's coming from there. He's lock, stock.
Now, you understand where he's at. He plays the same character as Samuel L. Jackson in Django. And so you have to call it out. And so as he puts on his tap shoes and goes out and says his thing, so you just have to understand. You have to understand Uncle Tim. But Leah, you talked about males, but in the females, you look at you have to call them out. Just like Senator Blackburn from Tennessee.
My goodness.
They had a Black lawyer that was trying to at the confirmation for judgeship in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And she all but called that boy the word in, talking about his rap sheet. That he has a rap sheet because he got
a rap sheet from how long ago? A rap sheet that didn't involve anything.
That he got a ticket.
He got
a driving while black ticket 5 miles over the speed limit, and that's a rap sheet.
Yeah.
So you have to call out the politically correct thing. They said that's hypocrisy, but I say you have to call it out to say, Marsha, we know what you want to say, and you're tap dancing around the words of the N word that you don't want to say because of politics, but we know who you are. Just put the hood on when you go there. Just put the hood on and say what you want to do. So that's Marsha Blackman from Tennessee.
Yes, yes.
So just call them out. At least I'm calling them out, in my opinion, so we don't go to Facebook jail.
Facebook jail again.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sad thing is the movement back then, how many black folks you could get, just like the bus boycott. You think you could have something like that now? Well, everybody would not ride the bus for the movement's sake. You're gonna have people say, "Hey, y'all, I ain't walking," you know. So that's one of the reasons they got a lot of things done, because they hit them in their pocket. They won't ride in the buses. Either they were walking or people volunteered to take you there. I mean, and you look at some of that old footage and see those buses riding by with nobody
on them. That's for sure.
If somebody tried to do that now, the bus would be half full, because it would be some of us saying, "I ain't for that," and that's why we moving like we moving now in some cases. Now we have some people out there really carrying the mantle for civil rights, but not like it was back then, where you really could affect change because of your numbers.
Yeah, well, I have to applaud Reverend Barber down in North Carolina, because in spite of whatever illness he's going through, he's out there on the line daily fighting for our rights, being arrested, and keeping it in the forefront of what's taking place as far as the civil rights bill, the voting bill is concerned. So you have to applaud people. There are not many people like Reverend Barber out here anymore. And I guess they really say that it's best that we not designate someone as the leader of our people, because that person becomes a target. And more individuals need to step out and take on a leadership role. We're facing crucial times now, you know, in Virginia, in the nation, and more individuals need to get out there to help to we all need to be out there fighting for voting rights at this time. We all need to be on the line. I've been on the line back in the past, so we need to get back out there and work towards making sure that these rights are not diminished any more than they are at today.
Yes. Well, why you say that? We need your help so that we can continue this program, and so they cannot silence this program. And if you'd like to help us, you can send a donation or an honorarium to Portsmouth Coffee Talk, and you see the words behind Leah, Portsmouth Coffee Talk, the P.O. Box 7664, Portsmouth, Virginia 23707. We need your help, because we can't continue. They want to silence us. And so, and we can all, and with your honorarium and with your help, we can also expand this program to go nationwide, because I've always said that we need a rebirth of the civil rights movement in America. And so that's my commentary for that one piece when you talk about help. But Leo mentioned the state of Virginia, and I've been burning up waiting for my opening there.
Your intro. I'm sorry I gave you your intro, Colonel.
Yes, I've been burning up. The state of Virginia on Saturday just entered the age of darkness. And I say that from a state, and you look at our history in the European, when they had an age of darkness, when we couldn't, books were burned, education was like put on hold, because they just swore in the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. And so when I say age of darkness, the first thing the new governor did is get rid of the Office of Diversity. The attorney general got rid of the Civil Rights Division. The governor also one of the first executive orders is to outlaw critical race theory in schools, which is not taught anywhere.
Which is not taught in the schools in Virginia. It's not taught in schools, period.
So basically, he should have shown up and taken his oath of office. And well, when he showed up, he took his hood off. So no, we can't see, but by your actions and what he's doing, he's telling you who I am. And you also see all of his new appointees that are coming through. They're all old Trumpers and old Bushes from Bush administration. Those people that are anti-American and anti-minorities and anti-woman. And so hopefully the Senate will hold the line. So I call on the Democratic held Senate 21-19. Just stop them. Stop them. Because Virginia needs to continue on. So actually, and here's the other one, the countdown clock starts. So we have 1,458 days till we get a new governor. So every day you count it down.
You're gonna do like my guy on MSNBC, huh?
Yes.
Number of days.
It is over.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let's get back to civil rights.
Yes.
Let's get back to why we celebrate today. You know, it's not a day to go shopping. It's not a day to lay around the house. It's not a day to work in your yard. It's a day of service. In 1983, am I correct? It was designated as a day of service. Yes. And we should be out doing things to better our communities. We need to be out there working with our young people. We need to be out there working with our elderly individuals in the community. If we want to live what Martin Luther King gave to us, we need to give back to the community as well. You know, Martin Luther King says that we are not makers of history, we are made by history. So it's important that we get out there and make this history and make it a positive history. It's important that we teach our children lessons about those who paved the way for us to be where we are today. I can truly say that I have been blessed in as much as I had a chance to have an audience or a friendship with Reverend Samuel Cowell. Samuel Cowell was on the balcony with Martin Luther King when Martin Luther King was shot in Memphis. And I was searching when I knew we were going to do this show. I was searching through my archives of items and looking for, just before he passed, I had a chance to talk with him, and he gave me a video of him telling his story of what happened on the balcony in Memphis, Tennessee. So, you know, I'm so thankful that I had a chance to meet Reverend Lowry and Jesse Jackson, and to have chances to talk to them about what took place. While working at the General Assembly, I met Rosa Parks, and that was a blessing within itself to hear her say exactly why she didn't get up. She was tired. She said, I was just tired. I was just tired. Mm-hmm. And it's just that she was the right person at the right time to get the movement started. You know, everything in life is about.
Others had done it.
Yeah, others had done it. For a 16-year-old girl had done it prior to that, but she was not the right person for the time, because they couldn't make a statement with that young girl. They needed someone who.
I think she was a young mother.
She was pregnant. I think she was pregnant at the time, which meant that they could not have started the movement. It's just that Rosa was there at the right time and in the right place, and for this movement to get started. So it's important that we, I'm also blessed that I've had an opportunity to take my Sankofa youth to Selma, Alabama, where they got to march across the Pettus Bridge twice. I took a group, my earlier group, and then I took my younger group over. And amazingly enough, having taught the kids their history, one of my little girls, when we rode into Selma, she said, Miss Leah, are they gonna put the dogs on us? Because she had learned the history of those individuals who crossed the Pettus Bridge. They got a chance to go to 16th Street Baptist Church to see the area where those young kids were when the church was bombed. You know, they got a chance to go to these places. We have to expose our kids. Our kids don't know their history. They don't know their history. And it's important. Glenn Youngkin's talking about critical race theory. What about history in general? What about just real history, true history? If we can instill in our children the truth of who they are and those who paved the way for them, I think we can get something better from our youth. My thoughts and my feelings on this Martin Luther King Day celebration.
Yeah, and before we got a few minutes before we end the radio, but Colonel, you mentioned all the things you mentioned that our current Virginia governor did. Ironically, it was done on the actual birthday of Martin Luther King. Wasn't that on that Saturday the 15th?
Yeah.
When he was sworn in? And
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of ironic, you know, kind of a slap in the face, you know.
Not kind,
why
not,
did that
not,
happen?
not, James, not kind of a slap. It was a slap in the face, not kind of a slap.
Why did all that have to happen?
It was the message of the future.
Right. Why did it have to happen on that day? But we will be leaving the radio station airways in a few minutes. And I want to thank all the listeners from WGPL 1350 AM for joining us this day. And I hope all those who are off for the holidays, for this holiday, will enjoy your day. And please remember what Dr. King sacrificed for us. And remember, the struggle is not over. It's not over yet. Continue on. But wow, Leah, that was something. You got a chance to meet and talk to some of these historic figures. And, you know, I always talk about this as well. We have living legends here in our city. And,
yes, we do.
All throughout the United States and the cities that some of our young kids miss the opportunity of knowing who they are. You know, every time Black History Month comes along, or Martin Luther King Day comes along, we talk about the national figures, which we should talk about the national figures, but they are local people that our younger generation had. They have no idea, because a lot of things that's happening local affect them directly and immediately.
Yes.
And you know, we miss the ball on that sometimes, and I'm sure some of our teachers are passing that on in some of their classes in between the time they are preparing for the SOLs and all the other stuff that required of them. But the good teachers are getting that over. But
yeah, because
we have a responsibility as well. And with all this social media now, and the opportunity, and that's why I also have to put in, we have to support Black media. I look at Roland Martin all the time. He has a Black Star Network now. And anytime one of someone dies that like Sidney Poitier or other people, he'll alter his whole show, or half of his whole show, to honor them and give a history of them. And it's not little sound bites. Well, we lost him, we lost Cicely Tyson, we lost this. So if you really want to know the history or get the true facts of what's really going on from some really educated panelists that he has on his show, just like we have here, you need to support Black media and use this medium to spread the truth. And don't be afraid to tell the truth to power and let people know what's really going on, because we are so influenced by some of these media.
We are.
Just that's like true. I saw somebody asking rappers whether they think about a world issue, you know, because of they're a rapper. And I think, I can't remember the rapper's name, but he was on stage and telling his audience, which a lot of young people back when it was spiking, not to wear the mask. The mask was stupid, and you
Yeah,
can't get a
yeah,
girl, with your mask,
yeah.
And so that's who we're listening to. So make sure you listen to some substance.
Yeah, yeah,
Take time. Entertainment is fine, but keep that where it should be in entertainment. But
yeah,
if you really want to know the real news, so follow programs like this for Black media, support Black media because they usually don't get the kind of corporate money that the white media gets. So you have to support us so we can give you the information and
Yeah,
and
give you a platform to talk as well.
exactly, exactly, and
yeah.
to share your views.
Mhm.
Yes.
And once again, I just can't, after 25 years of doing Sankofa, I said I wasn't going to do it anymore. And I was tired, I've had some great individuals who worked with me with the Sankofa program but every day I see more and more a need to continue because um, our children are they are losing out on so much. Fortunately enough, when we were in school, we had teachers who were invested in us, teachers who instilled in us those things that we needed to know in order to be great citizens of this nation. Um, I'm just seeing our kids at a loss now, and if each one of us just take the time to invest in one child, we're ahead of the game. But they
Mhm.
used to have the slogan out, each one, reach one. We need to get back to each one, reach one. It's important that we work with our children and help our children to understand. Our kids, I just think back to how my first trip to Africa and how when I was there in Ghana and the little children were coming up to me and they were talking about our history. They were telling me about people in our history. They were just so engaged in the history of African Americans in America. And when I came back home, I went to a high school class and I mentioned Jackie Robinson. And the kids said, oh, that's that guy. That's that guy that did he play football? Who is he? And they
Mhm.
didn't have a clue. They didn't have a clue. And that was back in 1997, and I can imagine what it's like now. They don't even know who your local leaders are. You don't know who paved the way for you. You don't know any of this information. And how can you grow as a whole person without knowing that many fought, many died to pave the way for you to be where you are today? We just don't know. And Slim, I recently became the president of Norcom's Alumni Association again. I just got to throw that in, but it's
Mhm.
making me go back and research the history of those individuals who've gone through the Norcom family, and the pay and what they pay. And I found this narrative, and if you don't mind, if you would indulge me, I'm going to read this narrative to you. I found this narrative because, back in the 60s, Norcom students went to integrate the lunch counters in Mid-City.
Mhm.
Now, I wanted to find the pictures. I can show the kids what the lunch counters looked like back there at Rose's and People's Drugstore and places like that. But it says that I see Norcom students cross the street to Rose's 5, 10, 25-cent store on the same day that the protest began in Norfolk. 18 students took seats. Witnesses ignored them, but they didn't budge. They went to Mid-City Shopping Center on Monday and faced a few hecklers. Tuesday afternoon, they arrived at Rose's and found the counter occupied by white teens. Now, Edwin Rodman, who I tried to call, and I'm still calling, trying to get him on our show. He's a priest now in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the Episcopal Church. Rodman, filled with dread, felt that things often got heated when Wilson, the nearby white school, and Norcom, the black school, crossed paths. This time was no different. The crowd on the verge of becoming a mob spilled into the parking lot. The white students pulled out hammers and pipes. A black teen got slammed in the face with a chain, and a girl was hit with a street sign. A group of black teens grabbed the chain and beat a lot of white students. The fights ended quickly, and Rodman found himself the spokesperson for the Norcom students. There were just 25 of us to begin with, he told reporters at the time when the other elements joined us. You always got that element, that fringe element that comes in that causes the trouble when you're trying to do something that's right. He said the students didn't care about eating at the counter. We just wanted the right to come here, he said. The next day, the 3 mid-city stores with a lunch counter closed early in the afternoon. But by 3:30 p.m., over 3,000 people milled between Norcom School grounds and the parking lot. I remember that day. And the next day, police officers came with dogs. They stood ready, and teachers and coaches came to these students and mingled with these students to try to lower the tempers of these students. No fights broke out, but nearly 30 people, adults, teens, whites, and blacks, were arrested for disorderly conduct. The crowd dispersed around 5 p.m. and 2 stores, Rose's and W.T. Grant's, announced that they would suspend their food service temporarily. People's Drugstore said it would start closing the counter about the time the schools let out. Rodman knew his group of student protesters needed guidance, and within a day, they got the people from CORE to come in. CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality. CORE, based in New York, grew out of Chicago, sit-ins in 1942, around the time of the current protesters had been born. Kerry met with Portsmouth students and helped them to develop a strategy that included moving the sit-ins downtown. The students would go into a store, ask to be served, wait to be refused, and then go outside and distribute flyers asking people to boycott. These things took place in 1960 in Portsmouth, Virginia. These people paved the way for us to have the right to sit at these lunch counters and eat. Now, today we were supposed to have had one of these students on as a guest, but the student became ill and could not come on. And that was Miss Margaret Jackson, who was a part of the movement. Carolyn Garrett.
Who was in her 80s.
Who was in her 80s. Carolyn Garrett, who opened gyms on Portsmouth Boulevard. She was one of these students who was involved in this protest movement. You have other individuals who are alive today who they need to be talking to these students, telling these students, or at least the school should have these people to come in to share with these students what they went through to pave the way. Now, Rodman became an activist. He was part of the SNCC movement. He was when they organized SNCC. And also he is now, as I said, SNCC is the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, but he's now a priest, and he came and spoke at our 100th year anniversary for Norcom alumni. And he said he had only 3 jobs in his life, and he's been blessed. All involve civil activism, social activism. And he constantly still talks about social activism. We have to become activists within our community. We need to get out there and make some changes. We're allowing ourselves to slide backwards as opposed to moving forward. And that's my speech. That's my sermon for this morning, because I'm really fired up about today. I do apologize if I took up most of your time, but I thought that was a piece of history that needed to be shared on this morning as we talk about Dr. Martin Luther King and what he did. And we have individuals in our community who also paved the way for us as well.
Well, you know what, Lee?
We should never forget the local participation in the movement. And there was a lot going on here. And back in those days as well, a lot of that activism started on college campuses.
Yeah,
And those people grew into the future leaders. That's why I was kind of proud to see the students at Howard University recently.
Exactly.
Sticking to their ground and making sure, and that was the only way they got the attention and got something done when they started. Well, first person I saw there was Roland Martin, and he did a whole section, a whole show on them. And then they started getting more national attention, which woke up the board of directors or the president, who was kind of dragging their feet. Never heard his side of the story. But anyway, that protest got some things done. And like I said, it
Exactly.
used to start on the college campuses. So,
Exactly.
and I'm sure it's a lot of students out here doing great work even today, but they need to be recognized for it. Well, not necessarily recognized, but the light should be shined on them to let them know. Excuse me. So anybody that has these social media platforms, make sure you bring these young kids on your shows and let them express themselves or how they feel about or what they're doing
Mm-hmm.
to create positive changes or what they feel needs to be done.
Mhm. I love how Leah, in the beginning, when you before you started on, your sermon, you talked about today should be a day of service, but
Yes.
actually it's a day of remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, we could serve, yes, and that's all in good, but we have to remember. And one of the big things that you did talk about is the teaching, because one, if we don't remember and we don't teach our history, history will repeat
It
itself.
will. It will.
It will repeat itself. And that's why, like you mentioned, Reverend Barber, and talked about, what the Poor People's Campaign. Poor People's Campaign was back in Martin Luther King's day.
Exactly.
We need it today. We need it today, Poor People's Campaign. And you look at how things are going today. There's an old GOP or Republican saying they want to go back to the good old days.
What were the good old days?
And that was in the 1960s, separate but equal. And they want power. Power equals money. And so without power, that's one reason we're having to fight over voting rights today. Because without the right to vote, you have no power at all. And I can, for the life of me, can never understand why people do not go out and vote. I don't care who you vote for, but to get out there and vote, because that's the only way. You complain all year why this is not happening or this happened or whatever, but you stayed home when when it was time for you to go to exercise your constitutional right. And that constitutional right is being taken away from you. We just talked about what this new governor is doing to you, and we're entering the dark ages of the state of Virginia. Why? Because about 30,000 votes separated him from making him stay home, and we could have continued the progress that the state of Virginia could have been made. So when the tolls come and all the other bad stuff comes, just remember, you stayed home and didn't vote, and you stayed home and watched Oprah or whatever you did that day. And so that's my piece there. So, but getting back to power is economic power. We have economic power. And I'll make this one comment too. You're talking about the boycotts, as I think Slim mentioned, if we could get boycotts today. I use the example of Home Depot. The CEO is a big GOP, Republican, and Trump supporter. I won't spend a dime in Home Depot unless I have to, because I let my dollar speak for itself. And so I don't spend money in Home Depot. And so you have to look at and educate yourself. If this company or organization or corporation does not have your same views, keep your money in your pocket. Go somewhere else and support a Black business, or support a business that has the same views that you do. If you're staying on the internet, it's easy to look up that stuff. And just free yourself. Stop being a slave like Uncle Tim in South Carolina, and free yourself. So that's my other piece.
Slim?
So Leah, you talked about the 1960, and I'll go to 72 when
Yes.
my senior class boycotted. And I think one of the main things that happened there was a matter of miscommunication, because one of the things we thought the word was getting out that they were closing. I mean, not closing, but they wanted to change, and that might have been a part of change the name
Yeah.
of IC Northam, or take that name away, because they were changing the curriculum there. And well, first thing they tried to integrate, which there could be a good argument for, did integrate help us or did it hurt us? But they tried
That's
to
another
integrate
story.
the schools. That's a whole nother show.
It is.
But they tried to integrate the schools, so they zoned certain people to go to certain schools to make it more integrated. All the zoning they did, and you heard this before, a white community right across the street from Northam, they were zoned to Wilson. That line went straight down Frederick Boulevard. So I'm thinking, if you really want to integrate, send those people within walking distance to Northam. But that didn't happen. But anyway, we thought that was going to happen. So the students decided, okay, we can't have this. We didn't know how much our community was doing, but we said we have to bring attention to it. So we boycotted to stay out of school. Now, I don't know, I think the purpose of the dogs, police dogs back in the day, were crowd control or finding missing people, whatever they were. I didn't think they were to sick your dogs on students because they weren't in class.
That's what it was
But
for.
that's exactly
That's what they did.
happened. You know, children, and one on the campus, one on the ground, the school grounds, across the street, protesting. Ben Chavis came down
Yes.
during that time to support the movement. But and the school, I guess people can say, well, the school ended up being better because they had the nursing programs, they had all these different programs. But what they did, that was good for the ones that qualified to go there, but it cut out a lot of Black people that wanted to experience Northam. They couldn't go. And then they started taking away the veteran teachers and integrating them into the white schools because they knew they were the best teachers. Most of them had master's degrees. So you talk about, and this was in 72. I guess we were free. But Martin Luther King had been assassinated, and I guess we were looking for another leader. Malcolm X was out there, but that was a whole different movement as well, and they took him out. But I said all that to say that we've been protesting. I think Onyx told us that in 91, they had a protest.
My daughter's class.
Yeah, that was your daughter's class. And that was for a name change as well?
That was when they wanted to make Northam into a magnet school. I'm not into a vocational school, I think it was.
Okay. So that would take Northam.
Yes.
Vocational school might have been good, but it was an effort to sort of, I don't know,
dilute what was going on at Northam. Yes.
And you mentioned your president now, the alumni, which one of the main purposes now is to let people know the history, what went on there, and why we walk around like we do as Greyhound, proud like we are, and we have fun with it. But I think you can ask any alum from IC Northam why they have that pride, and everybody, and you get 99 different stories.
Exactly.
It will be true to them, what they experienced there. And mine is multifaceted. The teachers, the interaction, the history I learned, and all that, and the sense of pride and the respect that we had for the teachers, and they gave us. In many cases, they call us Mr. and Mrs.
Exactly.
When they addressed us, the teachers did. So, they were preparing us for this cruel world that we were about to face once we graduated. So we have to keep that educational point going. And Leah, Leah has been putting on Facebook a lot of educational pieces. The piece about W.E. Waters, who was the principal there and longtime principal at North. Who knew that much detail about him and how much? Go ahead.
And you're right, Slim. And it's important. And my thought is that it's important to keep it in the forefront of your mind.
Mhm.
What has taken place? Who has paved the way for you? Those individuals who've sacrificed for us to get to where we are today. And that's why I'm constantly researching, constantly putting information out there so that we can understand the reasons why we are who we are and we are where we are based upon what others did for us. So it's just it's important, you know. It's so many people don't know history, and like Colonel said, you know, you got the internet, you have, but you got to be careful with the internet too now, because you can get some stuff that's not completely true on the internet, and that's how a lot of these people got fed up into that man's world who left the White House a year ago through things that were incorrect on the internet. But we need to research. We need to know our history. We need to know our history. And like the chief told me in Ghana when he gave me the Sankofa bird, he says, you know, you need to go back. You need to teach your children their history. And you know, and I just, you know, when I worked for the Pines Residential Treatment Center and I traveled all across this nation, and to go into some communities and see Saturday schools going on for children, like the Asian Americans may have their Saturday school teaching the kids about their history. You know, you may have a Native American school going on teaching them about their history. And we are the only ones who kind of left our history to the schools to share our history to our kids. They used to get it in church. The kids don't come to church anymore. So they're not getting the history in church. So I once again, I think if we don't get the kids to where they need to be, we're going to be a lost group of people.
Yeah, and we're going to have, the parents are going to have to teach them, because basically,
Parents don't know, Colonel.
They don't know either, but they've got to help. I know they've got to. Well, this whole generation behind us is missing in action. But somehow we've got to help them and sit down and read and research their history, because with this advent of critical race theory, history is not going to be taught. They basically want to outlaw history, because that, and when you look at what it really boils down to, the issue of critical race theory is, I don't want my pure white child to be know what happened by their ancestors. And so it's not about embarrassing anybody, but we have to know what was done in the past, so we can correct things, and how we can all get along and achieve things together, so we can have a brighter future. And there's a segment in society that does not want that. And if you go to state-run TV, meaning Fox, you can listen to that propaganda all day long. And so it goes back to the internet and things that are wrong, where there are news outlets that aren't really news. They're propaganda, especially from down in Mar-a-Lago. And so, oh, speaking of that, it just hit me then. The orange man, the twice impeached orange man down in Mar-a-Lago, was in Arizona. Did you see what he told his crowd down at his rally? Said that if you are white, they are going to withhold your vaccine and therapeutics. He told the crowd that, and he says the Biden administration and the government is what do you call it, denigratizing the federal government. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means, but I can imagine.
But basically, you know what it means.
But I'm hoping that with him saying that they're gonna hold back the vaccine for the white population, that's going to mean that a whole lot of them who didn't want to get vaccine going to go out there and get that vaccine, because we need it if we can never get to a place where we're going to get rid of this coronavirus.
No, but he is saying that if you get sick and need a vaccine, if you're white, you can't get it because they want to hold you back. They want you to die.
Sad.
And people are cheering for that. He also said if they pass the voting rights bill, that you'll never elect another Republican. And
Yes.
I guess that's what turned those 16 Republicans around, that
Yes.
and money. But I want to ask this question: if Martin Luther King was here today, how effective do you think he would be in gathering people to do, that picture when he spoke in Washington, D.C., of all those people there? You think he could do something like that, draw that many people to hear him speak today? How effective do you all think he might be today?
That is
as a young 30-something-year-old man.
James, I
don't have hope that would happen again.
Colonel, I hate to say I'm with you on that one all the way. I don't have much hope either.
Different times, I know, but I'm just saying, I guess the times are different, and that type, how people say, well, the marching won't work today and all that kind of stuff, but it does. It depends on what the cause is, what you're marching for. If you want to, everybody wants to have a march. You want to have a march for Pampers being non-degradable. That's, and I jest with that because you have all these different marches for things that probably just not fulfilling a real purpose. And that's why, a lot of people see all these different marches now and they say, oh man, that's not doing anything. So I don't know if he could galvanize that kind of crowd like he did back then in the 60s, because it was a different time, but it was a different time, but it still looks like it's the same. It's just a different shade.
I agree with you, James. And two, back then the struggle was real.
Yeah.
And the struggle was real, and
you saw it daily.
It just seems to be that today so many people feel that they have arrived that they would not partake in such an event as that on today. I just don't see, don't see.
But you had people back in the day that had arrived, but they still.
But the struggle was real. But the struggle was still, even though they had arrived.
Their resources, but they had arrived, but the laws were still against them.
Exactly.
Been to a certain point. Now the laws have changed and are supposed to be in our favor, but the justice system is not equal, but I guess it would be a different tactic. I just thought that was an interesting.
I think it was a great question.
But the times are different. But
well,
we get that there's Reverend Barber out there now doing his thing.
Yes. Well, you mentioned the justice. We have two justice systems out there. And I say that because folks that are going before the Justice Department that tried to overthrow our government on January 6th, they're getting a slap on the wrist. If I went down here and went down the city of Portsmouth or anywhere and swung at a cop, if I made it to the Justice Department, if they didn't shoot me in the street because they were justified to kill me, there's a black justice and justice for everybody else. So there are two justice systems. And you're talking about people that have arrived back in the day, back in the 50s and 60s, those who arrived, that arrival, even though it was only a handful, it was a different arrival. The money that they were making and the status that they were achieving was small in contempt if you look at what folks have gotten today. So yes, there are more people that think they've arrived, they've got nice middle class jobs, but we're leaving more people behind. There's more people that are below the poverty level, and in economics and also in education than there are for back in the day. So we still need progress, and we need to continue on. The struggle is we're needed we need a civil rights more now than we needed back then, because the whole system has turned against us. Well, we have a whole political party that is against us today.
Yeah, I see, and in some cases, there's a disconnect between some of our young leadership today and the way it was. And a lot of them don't like to hear the way it was or back in the day.
Yeah.
But a lot of that has to do with what's going on now. And you have to be aware of what went on back in the day in order for you to bring your new ideas and for them to be effective. If you were in front of a group of young leaders that were willing to sit down and listen for one thing, and you could share your experience with them about what we need to do for the future, what would you say to them?
One,
So much, I know.
there's so much. One, you have to know who you are
Exactly.
and what you want to achieve, and know your surrounding, and be able to look out who is the wolf. Because we have a lot of wolves out there that that may look like us, for one, and that will, after they take off their wolf's clothing, we see who they are. Two, I say you have to get all the education you got to get in your lifetime, and you have to have, and I've always had this piece to myself, is whatever the standard is, whatever the floor is, you have to have twice as much, whatever the standard is, for you to be equal to sit at the table. And within my own military career, they said you had to get a master's. So I went out and to achieve a relatively good career. So I went out and got 2 masters. They said you had to achieve a certain level of military education. So I went over it and above that. You have to have certain jobs. I always told my branch managers, give me the hardest job that you got and I'll be there. And so saying that, we have to work harder, work longer, and maintain our strength and values that they don't have to face. I retired as a colonel. I will say today, if I was looking like this sheet of paper, what I'm looking at now, I would have made general officer. And but it wasn't to me. I had a great career, and when I pinned on colonel, I was the 7th African American male nurse to make in a time 113 or 115 years in our nation's history. So I was a first wherever I went throughout my military career. And I would tell those kids, you have to be careful what you say, careful what you do. Oh, and social media it can be the death of you, which I didn't have to face, because what's on social media
Stays forever.
and stays forever.
Doesn't go away.
Doesn't go away, and it will derail you sooner or later.
Colonel, when you say what's on social media doesn't go away, I think about the Oath Keeper, how he tried to erase the information from his phone, and the Justice Department was still able to go in and retract some of those things. But Slim, I guess I would go back to Martin Luther King, who said, whatever affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. And that's what the young people, and they need to understand, they need to understand, as he says, that I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. He said that was the interrelated structure of reality. So we are all interdependent upon each other. So it's important for you to realize that we need to work together. We need to support each other. We need to end the division, the young versus the old. We need to learn that each of us can learn something from the other. You know, gain the wisdom from those who have paved the way before you and share that knowledge that you have for those who are coming behind you. You know, I hate to reflect back on the Alumni Association, but you have to realize that the older, those of us who come from back in the day, as the kids say, we have a little something that we can share with you. However, the younger people who are coming up behind us, they have all of this technological knowledge and all this other stuff that they have going for them. So if we weave the two together, we can come out with a very pretty package. But we just have to learn how to communicate, how to work with each other, and to realize, once again, whatever affects one directly affects all of us indirectly. So we can always go back to Martin, and you know, it just seems to me like 33 years. I think about Christ, 33 years on this earth, you know. I think about the prophecies from the Old Testament, how they predicted what was going to take place in the New. And it's amazing when you go back and read the works of Dr. Martin Luther King, it was almost like he was one of those prophets. Because some of the very same things that he spoke about back then, it's taking place now. It's just like he predicted where we were going to be on today. Go back and read his works. Go back and read his writings. It's just like he knew what we were going to be facing on today. You know, he tried to prepare us for what we are going to face on today, but we didn't listen. We didn't listen as a people. We listened to words, we heard words, but it didn't sink into us. So, you know, he was our prophet back in the 60s. I mean, I just went back when I knew that his day was, I went back, I got a book that was given to me about the writings of Dr. King, and just go back and read his writings. So much that he shared with us. If we had just taken heed to what he was saying and what he was doing, we probably would be in a better place today.
Well, you know what? I think that, Leah, you just made it, and it made me think about is that one, with the election of our first Black president, it really made us backslide in thinking, one, that we have arrived as a people. But what it did is just open the Pandora's box to all the pent-up racism and pent-up problems that we've had in society, and that was unleashed by the Orange Man down in Mar-a-Lago. And he's a symptom of what was brewing in society ever since then. And so it unleashed things now, and that's why we're suffering. And what's made it so bad now, because we are a disjointed people. We don't stick together like we should. And that is a problem. That is a problem.
Yeah, and Colonel and Leah, just like you said, I would say in the young leadership, they have to have respect, and that would start with self-respect.
Yes.
And being critical thinkers. And you say that we don't get together, you know, you can get attention by using your intellect.
Amen.
You don't have to get ugly up there.
Exactly.
And think the uglier you get, or the louder you get, the more attention you'll get. I think some of our leadership here locally are finding out that tactic is sort of backfiring on them in some instances.
Amen.
Where they think they're getting that attention and they're saying certain things, but people, and like you said, Colonel, people have no problem coming out and saying what they feel, and those same people in leadership are getting blasted by people who they thought that they were talking to,
Mm-hmm.
making their talking points. So,
Mhm.
you know, first that it starts with self-respect, and then you have to respect others, and you have to make sure you're knowledgeable of what kind of leadership you want to make sure what kind of leadership you want to have anyway. You can't just be all over the place. And I'm gonna help this person, I'm gonna help that person, I'm gonna help that person, and I'm gonna give money to this person, give money to that person, give money. You know, you have to be focused on your leadership and what direction you want to take it in, because
Exactly.
in most cases it's 9 of you all or 7 of you all, and you're not the only one up there.
Mhm.
So I would start with respect and your self-respect, and being a critical thinker and being
Mm-hmm.
knowledgeable, and never knowing that you're never too old to learn something.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
You don't know it all at 30, you don't know it all at 40. I'm still learning. I'm 67. And my mind is always open for new
Mhm.
knowledge. And whether it comes from somebody, my granddaughter at 3,
I was gonna say,
you
and
know,
the smallest child can teach you life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
You
mean,
just pay attention. If you just pay
Yeah.
yeah, she
attention.
does things and say, well, I wouldn't have thought of that. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Exactly.
she's 3 years old, going on 4. So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you just have to be open to new things, and in some cases be aware of some of the older ways things were done, and take that and mold it into something that can work today. But you
Mm-hmm.
can't dismiss everything that happened before you, or blame everything that's
On
happening
someone.
now on what people did in the past, because
Exactly.
you're going to be in that same position, because down the road, if you hold in a position now, down the road, people are going to look back at you and say, blame you for everything that's going
Mhm.
on. So
Mhm.
it's got to stop that.
Yes.
Anyway, I guess we'll get to that point at some time. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what it's going to take, but it's going to take, as long as we can be out there spreading what we can spread, and hopefully other people take the responsibility of doing the same, and stop fighting each other. I mean, we can have constructive conversations, arguments, debates, I'll put it that way, but we don't have to put each other down in public. We can do that in
Yes.
private all day
Well,
long.
they say we can disagree, but not become disagreeable.
Right.
You
Yes.
know, it's okay to
Yeah.
disagree, but
Yeah.
it's how you disagree that makes
You
a
think
difference.
everybody in Martin's circle agreed with him?
Never.
You know,
They
I
did
mean,
not.
there were some fierce arguments behind closed
Exactly.
doors, but
Exactly.
you didn't see that when they were out in the public.
Right.
And
Exactly.
you
Well,
know,
actually, he said that in one of his speeches, talking about, people disagreeing with him, and so he had a road to face then, also. But speaking of that, since we're on Facebook Live, uh, for those who are out on Facebook Live, if you like this program, please go out and like this, and also you can send a donation to Portsmouth Coffee Talk. P.O. Box 7664, Portsmouth, Virginia 23707. And so we can continue this program and also to expand it.
And
So
plus, if you missed any portion of today's show, you can always go to our YouTube page for some coffee talk. And we ask you to like and subscribe on that page as well.
and the Colonel and I and Leah are talking about expanding out into a podcast.
Yes,
Because I was telling Colonel earlier, a lot of people, the reason the podcasts are so popular, a lot of people just like to listen,
exactly.
and they can listen wherever they are.
Wherever they are.
And so that's why a lot of people, you see, they're putting their shows like this
Mm-hmm.
also on a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So, and some people can't sit still and watch something for so long, but they can walk around with this in their ear, or walk around in the house and do things
I'll
and
play
listen
it
to
while they're
this
driving in their car, you know?
while they're driving in their car.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to be exploring the podcast
Mm-hmm.
area. And I think also on the podcast, we open up a lot of ways we can actually talk to the people listening.
And that's
I
what
don't
we
know.
want to do.
That's,
We want to talk to our listeners. We want them to
yeah,
talk to us and share with us their thoughts as well.
yeah. We might have to figure out one day it's just open lines for people to call in and actually say what they have to say, because you probably think the colonel has some things to say. You know, I know you all be in those barber shops and you hear some of the conversation, and it might have to be called the barber shop segment of Portsmouth Coffee Talk.
Yeah.
But you get the real talk where the people really let it loose in there. So Colonel, that's a good name.
Yeah, but bottom line is we're trying to expand the intellectual palette of everybody that they can listen. And so we want to expand and to give America a chance to share in the knowledge that we all have, and also to gain from them. And so that's I guess that's a good summarization as we talk. So, but it's 46 after.
Yeah, and I know you have to get on the road there.
Yeah.
And traveling mercies to you, brother.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
We will end, and Portsmouth Coffee Talk is here.
Well, wait a minute. Before we end, I think we should end with some words from Dr. Martin Luther King, since this is the day for us to remember him. And two statements that he made that stays in my heart is that all labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. He also said, if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the host of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. I want to say we were blessed to have had Martin Luther King on this earth for 33 years. I encourage each and every one of you to go back and read those things that Martin wrote, and read the life that he lived and the things that he went through in order to get us to where we are today. My last and final words, James and Colonel.
Yeah, and make sure you go back and read the letters from the Birmingham jail.
Yes.
That was one of the, I guess the first, well, maybe one of the many times he really feared for his life.
Exactly.
But and still came up with some words that
inspiring
was in your mind.
Yes.
Inspiring. That's the word. So he has a lot of work out there you need to read, and there's other authors out there that you need to just go on Google and put in Black authors of the 60s, or and listen to some,
and the diverse opinions of those who were involved in the civil rights movement, because all were not like Martin. You had others who had other opinions as to how we needed to move in this movement. So it's important to look at all aspects of it. So
and some of you inspiring rappers out there, listen to some Gil Scott-Heron.
Yes.
Revolution will not be televised.
Revolution will not be televised. That is a classic.
Get his albums and listen to some of that stuff, because some of the things he talks about is relevant today.
Exactly.
Just all you have to do is just change Nixon to Trump.
Exactly.
On steroids.
Okay, everybody. If there's nothing else, Portsmouth Coffee Talk is here for our voice,
our community,
and our future.
Amen. Have a blessed day, everybody. Happy Martin Luther King's Day. Go out and do service somewhere. Do service somewhere. I know we kind of blocked in because there will be a lot of things going on today if it wasn't for the weather wasn't bad.
Yes.
Right.
And the weather. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Okay.
And we pray that Margaret is feeling much better. And we're sorry that we missed her on today's show.
We reschedule her because I think it's important we have.
And I'm still trying to reach Rodman too. It'd be great if we could get him to come on from Massachusetts.
Yeah. And Colonel, we're gonna work on the coach.
Yes.
Coach Savage.
Yeah. All right, y'all.
Be blessed.
Be blessed.
Happy MLK Day.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you.
Okay.